Alright, welcome to the first video in our fundamentals series. This video is about your sword, some terminology and how to hold your sword. So we'll talk about different kinds of swords, we'll talk about gloves, and we'll talk about some terminology. So this is my basic long sword. This is the one that I actually fight with and cut and thrust in the SCA. So you want to hold it with your strong hand up against the guard. I'm right-handed, so I'm holding it this way. If I was left-handed, I'd be holding it this way. And this is how you would hold it. You do not put your finger up over the pillion because that's a very easy way to get yourself hurt. So you've got your knuckles in line with one edge of the blade, and it doesn't matter on this sword which way it is, the blade is symmetric, but the edge of the blade that you have in line with your knuckles is called the true edge, and the edge that is not in line with your knuckles is called the false edge. So this is my true edge, and if I'm right-handed, that's my true edge. You can grab it with a second hand if you're doing a two-handed style, and when you're doing that, your second hand, your weaker hand, is the one you're going to let go with most of the time. So if you're doing some hand and a half, if you're doing some blade grabbing or some half swording, like from the sword and armor section, then I'm going to be doing that with my left hand. Alright, so same thing with a single-handed sword. Hold it with your strong hand, true edge, false edge. And if you're applying this Fiore's technique to a rapier, which did not exist in his period, so he doesn't explicitly talk about rapier, but I find it does apply fairly well to SCA rapier combat, then you probably will have a bias here in the guard. So if you look here, I have this structure on my guard that is a knuckle guard. So I hold the sword like this, with my knuckles behind that guard. I don't hold it like this, where it's protecting the back of my hand. That's the wrong answer. And with this sword, I'm putting one finger up over the quillions because that's the way my hand fits, and it gives me more authority to move the sword around well. With all of these swords, I'm holding it mostly with my first two fingers and my thumb most of the time, and then I'm grabbing with the lower fingers every once in a while when I need more strength and more authority. So, another thing to think about with true edge and false edge is that almost all of Fiore's blows, cuts, are delivered with the true edge. And that is because when you are cutting in this direction, one-handed or two-handed, that blade and that cut is in line with your wrist, your arm, your shoulder, and it all works very well to give you power and control. The back edge, or the false edge, is not as well lined up with your muscles. It doesn't work as well mechanically. It's hard to control, and it's hard to deliver power. You can do it, and there are some false edge cuts in his system, but almost all of them are true edge. So keep that in mind. Depending on what you're doing with the swords, you will probably want to glove up. I've been demonstrating with my empty hand so you can see where my fingers are and how they were lined up with the sword. If you're doing real slow work and just want to practice, a simple leather gauntlet will be fine. If you're doing slow work with a buddy, you probably want to use some kind of a padded gauntlet like this. This is a HMA style gauntlet, and I've added a demi gauntlet, this half cup to protect the wrist because there's a joint in the glove that I wasn't happy with where I could get hurt. The gauntlet looks like, and as you can see, I was concerned about my wrist, so I added a demi gauntlet on top. If you're going at full speed, if you're doing SCA cut and thrust, then you're required to wear something a little more rigid. This is an inexpensive set of metal gauntlets that I have. There are links to this on the Learn Fiore page. I'm pretty happy with these. They work pretty well. You can certainly do better, but you will spend a lot more money to get better than this. Alright, and here are my metal finger gauntlets that I use when I'm fighting cut and thrust in earnest. They really do a good job of protecting my fingers because I depend on them for my living.